Hey guys, it's Cinnamon Rats, and today I will be telling you 10 things you need to have before owning rats. Let's get on to the video. Number 1 is research. Research is the most important thing you're going to need to have before getting rats. Many people think it's okay to go to the store and buy animals before doing research, and they end up coming home with improper food, improper cages, and a very scared and skittish rat. Research will not only help you with having the proper things for your rats, but also knowing what to do in certain emergencies, such as very aggressive rats or maybe illnesses in your rats. Not doing research can leave you scrambling to find answers during emergencies, which isn't so good for your rat's health in certain cases. Doing research proves that your rat will have a perfect life, and knowing such knowledge can also help out other rat owners in need. Make sure to do months and months of research. Doing 1 to 2 days of research is not enough. You need to go into depth on certain topics. Number 2 is cages. Cages are very important because this is where they're going to be living. Another reason they're very important is because a lot of people have misconceptions about proper cages. Rats need very big cages. That's why I listed these really nice cages you could buy for them. The minimum requirements for cage sizing is 72 by 36 by 44 centimeters, meaning any cage underneath this requirement is not suitable for rats. Here I will be displaying unsuitable cages. Here you can see they are very small and relatively just bad. Some of these cages are targeted towards hamsters but are not even good for them either. In these cages, they do not supply enough floor space, climbing space, or overall living space. Cages shown on here are very suitable. They are very big and supply floor space and climbing space. It allows you to put a lot of enriching things in there for the rats, and also gives them a lot of room to run around at night when they are playing. These cages are what you should be buying. And if you cannot pay for cages like these, which I know these are pretty expensive, you should not be getting rats because rats need a lot of maintenance and money spending. Here are some ways you can find these cages. Searching up rat, bird, ferret, and chinchilla brings up cages like these. Places you can find cages like these on is Amazon. Price ranging is usually around $100 to $400. Number 3 is food and water bottles. A correct diet is a very important part in a rat's life. That's why I put this third on the list. Now, there are many easy, cheap brands at the store, but a lot of these aren't okay for your rats. And this also occurs to a lot of other animals. Basically, what's happening is these businesses are budgeting because they don't have enough for the food. So they add a bunch of preservatives and bad things that these rats cannot actually eat inside of the food, causing deaths in very unhealthy rats. That's why you really need to make sure you're feeding your correct diet. On the screen here, I have 3 nice recommended food brands. The number 1 I would really recommend is Oxbow Essential Adult Rat Food. This one I even feed to my rats. Now, the only downfall about Oxbow is that they actually make 2 other lines that are really bad for your rats: Garden Select and Young Rat Food. I'm not exactly sure why they only have 1 good one and 2 other bad ones, but just try to stay away from these. Now, when getting your rats proper food, it doesn't just mean going and buying some pellets, because pellets can be very bored to eat from day to day. That's why you should spice things up with a nice dry mix. Dry mixes should be fed every other day to prevent picky eating. I also forgot to mention that giving rats full access to food throughout the day can lead to overeating, so I recommend giving them a nice scheduled diet. Now, for the water bottles, there really is no incorrect water bottle that you can get, but I do have one that I can recommend. Choco Knows No Drip. These water bottles I actually use myself and are really good. Stated in the name, they are no drip water bottles and actually are pretty silent. They are also recycled bottles, so they're very good for the earth. Now, some people can't agree that glass water bottles are better than plastic because glass water bottles are better for the summer because they keep the water cool, and the plastic ones don't tend to do that as much. But really, either is fine, it just is a matter of if it leaks or not. Number 4 is cage toys and accessories. These are very important to have inside of your rat's cage. A cage that has no toys or accessories in it can lead to a bored and depressed rat. I've also seen a few people who decide to put only a few toys and maybe 1 hammock in their cage, and this is still not okay. You really need to fill up this cage. Rats are one of the prey out of the rodents, and A rat likes to feel safe by having a big, cluttered cage. This is why you need to give them lots of toys and things inside of the cage. But not only for that fact should you have them, it also gives them activity and foraging things to do, such as these foraging toys. Foraging toys are great boredom breakers. They are very great to put your rat's main diet in, for it actually helps with slower eating. Foraging toys are great for stimulating the rat's mind and helping prevent boredom and depression. Supplying them with 1 or 2 foraging toys in their cage is a really good idea, and I definitely recommend having this in your cage. It's good for putting treats or, like I said, their main diet. Now, the foraging toys aren't the only thing you need in the cage. You're going to need things such as hammocks and climbing toys. As shown on here, these are some of the things that you can buy for the cage, such as hidey huts, ladders, bird ropes, dog ropes, hammocks, IKEA tie holders, and Savic Sputniks. I also recommend getting a mineral tree for inside of your cage, such as a lava ledge. This helps minimize teeth growth and also helps with sharp nails. It also just gives the rats something to chew on when they're bored. Now, you don't actually have to use all just animal-directed items. You can use around-the-house items too, shown on this. It's always great to make a nice DIY thing for your cage. It definitely works for budgeting. Going to your local thrift shop or dollar store, this could really help you. You can find such things as bins or maybe spice racks there. These are both really good to use for your rats. You can also use things such as CVC pipes or even baby toys. Now, I definitely didn't list everything that you could use. You can really use a wide spectrum of things. This is just really what came to mind at first. Number 5 is money. Now, I don't have too much to explain about this, so we're just going to go over the basis. Rats are not cheap animals. If you continuously own rats, you're most likely going to have a few vet trips in that time. This is why you're going to need to have money saved for the rats. There is really no way predicting whether a rat is going to get ill or not. It's usually all in the genetics or overall just the rat itself. Another reason you're going to need money is because cages and accessories for rats cost a big load of money, especially buying continuous amounts of food, and if you litter train your rats, you're also going to have to buy litter, or even if you're doing bedding, you're going to need to buy bedding as well. A lot of people have a misconception that rats are one of the more cheaper animals and could just be stuck in a small cage with probably like one hide and that's alright. This is not true. No one should be getting an animal unless they have the money for it. Getting an animal when you don't have money is very neglectful and also immature on your part. These animals' lives are in your hands and you're completely crushing it. A lot of people base the amount they pay for rats on their size and also their lifespan. Even though they live for 2 to 3 years, that just makes you want to spoil them even more. If you are a small animal, you wouldn't want to be neglected inside of a small cage with continuous boredom. You would want to have a nice big cage with lots of things to play with and lots of buddies to play with as well. Number 6 is emergency local vets. Locating exotic vets near you is a really good thing to do before getting rats. This allows you to have a vet to go to when your rats get sick. Now, there's not too much to say about this topic except for rats are very prone to illnesses. So locating a vet near you that takes in exotic animals is really good for this reason. Rats are also prey animals, meaning they like to hide their sicknesses away out of natural instinct. This being said, you might find your rat being in the worst stages of sickness, so this is where you're going to need an emergency vet. And there also really is no way to prevent rats from getting sick, so you really just need to have this on hand. Also, there is no way to predict whether a rat is going to get sick or not. The only way you're going to know this is when they're actually sick. So, like I just said, it's really good to have emergency vet clinics near you that you already know exist. If you don't have these, you're going to have to go and scramble to find some, and I have heard cases of where people do not have any near them, and this is really bad because you can't get your rat treated. There are home medications that you can get for yourself, but you really need to do a lot of research on these. Giving unknown medications to your rats can be very harmful to them and could sometimes lead to death. I know that some medications can get rid of the sickness for time being, but later on the sickness will come back. So make sure to really do your research if you're going to be home medicating. Number 7 is temporary cages and carriers. It is very important to have temporary cages set aside for your rats. You're going to need temporary cages and carriers for a lot of reasons. You're going to need temporary cages for separation, such as if you're getting new rats or if you have aggression. You can also use temporary smaller cages for introductions, such as the carrier method. Another reason for temporary cages is breeders use them as their birthing cages. And sometimes if you have some really ill rats, you can put them in a temporary cage, but it's better to keep them in the main cage. Reasons to have carriers is if you're taking them to the vet or if you're getting new rats. You can use temporary cages instead of designated carriers such as the Living World, but I know that a lot of people like to use the smaller carriers just to have a safer ride. Now, there really isn't too much to talk about this, rather than you're really going to need to have a temporary cage. Like I've said before, you can't really predict anything that's going to happen with your rats, so having this temporary cage can really help you out in the long run, especially in cases of emergency.
Say, maybe you have to go get your male neutered because he's really aggressive and you don't have a cage for him to stay in.
That's where having a temporary cage comes into place. You're going to need to house him in a smaller cage to lessen your chances of injury. Number 8 is your playpens and toys. Now, you don't necessarily have to have a playpen, but you're going to need a free roam space. Free roaming your rats is really important. So either having your items or having an idea where your rats are going to free roam before you have them is really good. Rats should have 1 to 2 hours of free roam every day. It's really good to give them a nice big area to free roam too. Shown in these pictures, you can make something such as a DIY playpen with cardboard. Or you could go on Amazon and buy playpens off of there. Now, the playpens aren't the only main source you're going to need. You're also going to need toys inside of it, such as a fort of cardboard boxes or even using smaller cages. You can use a wide variety of things, but I personally like to make forts of cardboard. It makes it really fun. Along with just their playpens and toys, I think you should also have some foraging toys or maybe trick training toys too. This helps with the free roam space being more enriching. They can get easily bored after they've been in it many times. So bringing treats and foraging toys is really good. And also training them tricks is really fun for them too. Number 9 is really important. Before buying your rats, you really need to figure out what room you're going to have your rats in. You're going to need them in a quiet, warm room. You don't want the room to be too cold or too hot. Hot rooms can lead to heat strokes, and cold rooms can lead to illnesses. It's good to know what your room is going to give you throughout the seasons. You're going to need to prepare for air conditioning and heating. During the winter, it can get cold in certain rooms and stay a little bit warmer in others. And during the summer, it can get really hot but be colder in certain rooms. That's why it's good to plan out a nice, warm room for your rats to stay in. You also want this room to be a bit quieter and not super loud and crazy. Rats are prey animals and can get really skittish with loud noises. So it's good to supply them with a room that isn't too crazy. Say you decided to put them in your living room, but you have a bunch of siblings and they are very loud and crazy and might start banging on the cage. This is not a good home space for them. It'd be better off to have them in such places as your room, depending on the temperatures that it reaches. Having rats in a quiet room is really important for newer rats as well. So before you get newer rats, it's really good to know where you're going to put them. They're going to have to adjust to new spaces and smells and sounds. So you don't want their first experience to be very loud and noisy, which can really scare them. So that's why having a quiet place is very important. And lastly is number 10, having a planned out breeder or rescue. It's very good to know where you're going to be getting your rats before getting them, such as locating a local breeder or finding a rescue that houses rats. A lot of people don't do research and just go and buy their rats right away from pet stores. And this is really bad and should not be done. Buying rats from pet stores is not only affecting you and the rats, but the people behind the mills. Buying rats from pet stores is supporting the mills behind all of this and is encouraging them to keep breeding. And these mills behind these rats do not care for the health or the well-being of the rats and just breed to profit. So these rats tend to come out skittish and very sick. That's why you should plan out to get a breeder or from a rescue. And also having these breeders or rescues around also helps you out with if you're having problems with your rats. You'll have them near to answer questions. Rats from breeders also come really healthy and socialized, and you can also find a bunch of different types of rats that you would not find in pet stores. So make sure to know where you're buying your rats before getting them. And that is all for today's video. I hope you really enjoyed. Please give this a like, comment, and subscribe. Leave some comments down below on new video ideas. And make sure to have an awesome day and do lots of research before buying your rats. And if you're interested in watching more of my videos, click one of the suggested ones I have here. Thank you for watching and bye!